Hi everybody, welcome back for the third day. You can unmute your microphones. So we can just begin, we can take off from where we left off yesterday. We were talking of artist statements and the issue of sincerity surrounding them. So
Can you
I
say the
thought
issue of what?
sincerity.
Okay.
Because Rayas had made a comment that he feels sad when artist statements are approached in a sincere way.
Okay.
Because he said that artist statements are, after all, conscious constructs,
Mm-hmm.
and so they can't be sincere.
Okay.
So I'm taking that as a takeoff point, and if they are conscious constructs,
Mm-hmm.
then can they not be artistic as well? Um,
Because they're conscious constructs.
exactly, and that's what I think even artworks are. You are constructing a certain expression of or articulation of ideas that you compile. So it is artworks are also conscious constructions. They may have elements of intuitive um, articulation also, but there is a level of conscious construction in them overall.
But if we were to take, for example, just a different tangent of activist writing as sincere, okay? If, just for the sake of an example.
Okay, okay.
So if we were to take activist writing as an example of being sincere because there is an immediate social cause that you're reflecting to and you're supposed to inspire or like stimulate, etc., etc.
Right.
So, do you think then that is the form of sincerity? Because it's also a statement, no? So, it's a statement of different kind for sure, but it has a different gravity of immediacy. As a,
Right. The difference here that we were discussing yesterday is the fact that there are two languages that can potentially come into conflict when you have an artist statement. One is the artist's artwork, which carries its own language, and
Mhm.
then the statement, which is in either text or verbal form, which is trying to represent the ideas that the artworks is supposedly carrying. And we were discussing how you don't want to articulate everything. A lot is left to the unarticulated. You know, what is not said. You don't want to explain or illustrate everything, even in the artwork. You're
Mhm.
leaving room for interpretation. So from that context, the artist statement becomes a kind of um,
No,
package.
I mean also, Srinivasa, the difference. The other context that you just presented, the activist writing, right?
Yeah.
So there is from how you speak and how what you speak, let's say, affects the community that it is meant for.
Mhm.
Their language is not so different. So let's say you're meeting a bunch of activists over coffee and having a discussion, and if you're writing this text and for wider circulation, they will not be very different. They might be like thoda one might be a bit formally constructed and using a bit of references and all that, but largely the language will be consistent. Now,
What do
I
you?
don't know if they will be. I don't know if they'll be
Yeah, I mean,
consistent. I think
what will you?
the
How will you
activist,
catch?
sorry, in the activist scenario, there is a huge level of sincerity. Otherwise, you're not being true to, within
no,
quotes,
that's what
true to
I'm
the
saying.
cause.
So, I mean, the sincerity is in the form that I mean, see, what you are saying is how you speak,
What
right?
you see, what you get. Yeah.
Yeah. So, how you speak is how you speak. So the language remains consistent no matter if it's for public consumption, it's for private debate.
No, but the doesn't the true that when you're more conscious when you have an immediate public consumption as the predicament when you're actually writing, because the whole
Yeah.
point of you writing, for example, a press release or like a provocative speech or like a speech text is the fact that it has to produce more cathartic kind of reflection immediately, no? You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
so I mean, so it might have more lyric, it might have more grandstanding and all that, but I'm saying the core argument. So why you, let's say, why do you want to oppose something happening out there? What
Hmm.
is your core argument?
No.
Your argument will more or less remain, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think in contrast to this, what you were talking about the artist statement was, of course, that there is no consistency in what you are. And that is the amount, that is the sincerity which we were finding slightly troubling. Ki, if that is acknowledged as a construction,
Uh-huh.
and and okay, so and then we were talking about it ki हाँ तो if you are manipulating me तो बोल क्या manipulate करो.
Hmm.
But here's the other thing. What if I don't want to tell you? I just want to manipulate you.
That's fine as well, but then acknowledge that. I mean, okay, you don't need to acknowledge, but I mean, I'm just saying that would make. I mean, manipulation is of course sincere.
Hmm.
What if the artist statement is actually giving you like an example of an interpretation? Is that insincere? What if the artist is stepping outside themselves and writing the statement in a kind of objective way?
No, sincerity is also the fact that whether you're talking about sincerity in the measure of whether it's biographical, whether it's the closeness that you share with the work as a person, because it's so much embedded in the way that how you function, because you are the one who is making it, and also you're the one who's articulating it. But the point is, what is the moment you produce a distance between these two, and how does then you locate sincerity in between these? So whether we are saying that it's sincere as long as it sounds like a narrative that's convincing, or do you think, are you saying that that convincing narrative itself is a manipulation?
No, so I think the point of using the sincerity was that if you are actually referring to yourself, which is what an artist statement does in some ways. If you're referring to yourself, and if you're referring to yourself as a very as something which is before the fact, so in the sense which is natural, and you're trying to speak of it in a language which is either logically or philosophically or critically, whatever, opening things up, then how can you not acknowledge the fact that you are making yourself into a construct?
Mm-hmm.
I think the sincerity would come in more with depending on what you've written and the way people react to it, about at what level you can respond to that without having to step back and question what you've written. You should be able to respond to that in a similar manner to the way you've written it, and with as much sincerity as
But I'm
the
confused.
initial.
How do you? This is my big question about how do you acknowledge it? How am I going to say, oh, listen, I'm going to manipulate you? So how am I going to acknowledge either sincerity or manipulation?
I mean, say if you put out a statement and then there are 10 people who question it, it's about how you're able to answer those 10 people and in a way come to a conclusion with each of them, no matter what their questions are, because your statement is sincere enough to allow that. And you've sincerely written it where you can actually tackle all the questions that come your way for what you've written.
So I can actually sincerely construct my sincerity without acknowledgement. I mean, what I'm having trouble with is how can anyone know anything? How do I know somebody is sincere or not? It's my interpretation of what they've put out in front of me.
Certainly.
No, even the image of ourselves we have is a construct.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think it's yeah, I don't know if we can give up our right or access to the knowledge of whether something is sincere or not so easily, because I think we can debate on at least knowing whether something is being acknowledged as a construct or being passed off as an element of truth of some nature.
that may depend on how one chooses to write or articulate what they are saying, the statement, what kind of language they use to write.
Yeah, I mean, I am basically talking about the self-referencing. When you talk about yourself,
Yeah.
if you don't talk about yourself at all, it's fine. I'm just, if you talk about a set of ideas or a set of framework or whatever, that's fine.
Sure, sure.
I'm saying when you refer to yourself,
Yeah.
how do you do it?
Yeah.
Because in that comes the whole, the aspect of either sincerity or acknowledging construction.
So what if the statement actually speaks of not the artwork? Because that's what a lot of statements end up doing, and I have always found it more beneficial to read statements that give me a little more background about where the artist is coming from, both contextually and conceptually. So, little details about, where the artist lives or the kind of things they've been interested in or something like that ends up giving me a deeper understanding of this person, and then I can look at the artwork from a slightly more well-rounded lens.
I totally agree with what you said, Malvika. Like from a curatorial perspective, just seeing a person's images or of their work may or may not be completely useful for me. If I know more about their intent or what I construct of what their intent is, I agree with you, what you said, yeah.
Where the statement is not sitting and explaining the works and what the work intends to do, but what they intend to do in a kind of very large, abstract sense.
And where do they fit and where are they coming from? And,
yeah, precisely. So,
I mean, but those are elements of construction. I mean, if I tell you that, okay, this is where I come from, this is how I started working on this thing and all that. How would you know if I'm telling you something that I mean, the truth might not even exist, but like, let's say, how do you know whether I'm telling you something? I mean, you would obviously know whether I'm telling you something if I want you to believe it because I'm telling it to you as a truth, or if I'm sharing an idea with you, and it doesn't matter if this idea is true or false or a construction.
It's how well you're persuading me, how well you're appealing to my aesthetic.
Yeah, so that is idea specific, right?
So
it could be, in each case, yes, it could be.
It could be the rhetoric, it could be the manner.
Yeah, it could be the manner. I mean, it could be a medium of an artist of one medium, but use some other medium to express another kind. But I could fully convince you very well, like that I'm really good at this other thing.
I think it's very difficult to construct something that is not entirely true. I mean, or rather, that doesn't have at least a small element of truth in it. Supposing I make some very disturbing work and I put out this whole picture that I'm a refugee when I'm not at all a refugee, somewhere it's not going to all fall into place. It's not going to be convincing enough. Either what I project in terms of my statement or the works, they're not going to match up.
But what is this coherence? I'm just thinking about whether the sincerity, or okay, let's think the coherence that we are talking about of something that we have written and something that's made by us, like artists, for instance, is the fact that there is a necessary perception that there would be a relationship between, maybe sometimes very direct, sometimes indirect, sometimes just like the text becomes the second layer of the work. But what I'm not able to is the fact that okay, all of these are constructs. B, the fact that why is there the perception that we have to have a necessary relationship between A and B is what I'm not able to understand. So whether there is a possibility for us to not descriptive, illustrative, all those kind of definitions to something that is already made and created by us, and the necessity to produce a context so that the other person will understand. So it's a given thing, no? It's like the classic Vasarian model of like thinking about how do you give a social context and how do you somewhere locate the artist in a trajectory so that you can describe and understand and make sense of how the artwork is shaped, right? So let's imagine a situation where we don't have any of these, but we have a note and we have a painting. Then how do you then engage with that?
So are you trying to say that you look at both independently and not try to relate one to another?
I'm saying whether that situation would exist, because
Well, that's my question too. Whether if you are looking at the written form or the supporting form to either visual or musical form is uh, it would also be a construct. And if it's a construct, then can it not be artistic in its own right? So can it not be created differently by the same person to end up reflecting similar ideas?
Mute mic again.
But I didn't really understand why. What will happen if we don't perceive them? If you don't perceive the work and the text to be coexisting in the same plane, what will we gain by that?
what are you saying? Sorry.
If we manage to keep those two layers apart, you know, the text and the work. So what will we perceive additionally? What will be the perceptual difference? What will be the benefit?
No,
I feel like it's the intent, right? What is the overall intent of the artist when the artwork and the statement? These are two separate elements that are coming together and giving some intent. It's projecting the intent of the artist. So
yeah. So how? I mean, I think we can break it down to a. We can. I mean, I don't know. I'm proposing that we break it down to unhinge it from the art context, and I think it can be expressed in a simpler way as if there is any action being performed, and if the intention behind the action is also being articulated. What would you do with that articulation? Would you? I mean, would you?
see, the overall articulation.
How would you accept it?
The overall articulation is the sum of the action and the projection of the intent, right? So it's not just the action.
But the intent is not just being projected; it's being articulated. So that's
articulation is the projection. I mean, I could project something at you.
It could be a projection of the action where the action is the symbol. I mean, that's what we discussed yesterday, how a symbol is something that creates a larger language.
Yeah.
So it's mostly creation of an image in some way, no?
Yeah. So if that happens, so if I do something and I also tell you in the next instance, oh, I did this because of this. Now, would that change what you interpreted as your, as your reading of why I did that action in the first place?
I would say yes, because I'm getting new information. You're telling me something about something, so I have two pieces of something now.
Right.
But that's just another thing to disbelieve in. I mean, what I'm saying is.
I mean, what is there to believe? How do you know what to believe in?
No, another way of believing is to negate. Like you say, no, I'm not going to believe this. I'm not going to believe this. You're keeping on negating everything that comes to you.
You be the cynic. You be cynical of everything.
No, it's a very close parallel to what we are talking about. The whole artist statement thing. It's a very close parallel. So when you have some action and someone reads the action in the light of their own perspective, and they form an idea of, okay, इस action का ये intention होगा. You make that kind of idea, and then you're also faced by the actor telling you that this was my intention. So which
Right.
one would you believe? Would you believe
So
your
here's
own
the thing.
formulated intention or their articulated one?
You'll have to take a bit of both.
Exactly, and you don't know what to believe, to be honest. It's whatever makes sense from the when you join what the artist is doing and the artist is saying that they are doing, and what they are saying they are doing could be a construct, which is the question for today. Maybe that's a
Yeah.
decent.
I mean, I'm just saying that it's a very close parallel. Because art takes us, I mean, talking about art takes us in all kinds of circles. So if we unhinge it from art, if we just, make it like a simple action and intent thing, it's simple enough to do that.
I mean, at the end of the day, really, there's no way to know what the action was in the first place. And what the person is saying, there's no way to believe it or not believe it. So it's your own interpretation of what you want to do with the information you've received.
Yeah, so then the artist statement becomes problematic only because of the significance you give it.
That's true.
If it is, I mean, if you give whatever significance, I mean, does it have to be problematic?
It becomes about individual perception also then.
Yeah.
That's that's with anything, whether it's an artist statement or something that you read or something that somebody says.
Yeah, Lena has actually texted another point here, which I think makes sense. She says there is always proxy articulation, where a third person takes on the act of framing the imagery in words. So there's another layer of construction happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if y'all can hear me. My internet is a bit dodgy today,
No,
but
you're absolutely clear, very clear.
Oh, great. That's why I was typing it out. Because for me, as a curator, the kind of falsity, let's say, of written words, if they are not actually expressed by the person themselves, comes across very clearly. I'll just give you short example of a few days back. Somebody sent me some works, a person whom I know very well and whose works I really do understand and follow. And then along with that, a very conceptually framed statement which went along with the works. And I was shocked, and then I wrote back and said, well, did you write this? And then he said, no, actually I sort of mentioned this to somebody else and they wrote it for me, but I'm using it as my statement. That's one aspect that I speak of, and a second aspect is more of a mutually understood position, like that of a curator who begins to enter into that imagery and the voice of the image maker, and then creates some kind of truthful articulation out of it. So actually, yes, there are many ways in which to look at it.
Then does the curator then become the interlocutor in a context where the artist cannot articulate? Is that what you're saying, or you're saying something? In the sense like
cannot, will not, has a different language. There are many concerns that come into it.
Yeah. No, but what I'm trying to understand is that there are two ways of, like, I would like to understand the curatorial, because for some reasons I happen to look at a lot of artists who don't prefer to talk about their works in the public domain. Okay, when they make presentations, they don't usually talk about their work, but they talk about something else that are more conceptual relations in the field of art, how to perceive art, how to look at art, etc., etc. So let's imagine a context, because for them, talking about art is an illustrative, okay, we are representing the practice that we make in a kind of a discussion forum or in a writing forum. But for them, the text or the speech stands by itself and has a different layer dimension to the other kinds of practices that they make. So would be, it's not like a detachment, of course it could be another layer, but it would be interesting also to think about why certain positions are taken, no? Like in the sense, like, why is it that they're trying to move away from the biographical, from the position that's illustrative in the artist statement that you more often see, or something else? Or they're actually taking the curatorial role in that way? What do you think?
I'd like to add to that. I'm wondering if it's a third person writing on the artwork, is there a possibility of that itself being enhancing the piece without, I mean, beyond what one could imagine? So,
Very much so.
That does happen.
so if that does happen, then I'm just wondering why we shouldn't accept that, and if we're accepting that.
I mean, there are several artists who are more comfortable articulating through their works and may not be able to articulate in the same manner,
Right,
in the form of words, which is where a third person would come in, whether it's a writer, curator, I mean,
yes,
or a friend who may be able to articulate it better for them,
yeah,
to be able to convey it to the audience or the viewers of their works.
yeah,
But then there's also the place where the
Right,
artist
yeah.
doesn't want, I don't want somebody defining what I'm doing. So I just may not appreciate someone else talking about me, but unfortunately, if I don't talk about it and someone else has to talk about it, they are framing me, but that's the only way I can be heard, then I'm stuck with that.
Then there's also this thing that if it's being framed by somebody else, as long as it's projecting them well, it's fine. So, like, everybody wants good advertisement. So it does
I think
become a
that's what
packaging.
the difference between where it would be, say, a critic or somebody who's reviewing something where you don't have control over the way somebody's articulating something they've understood,
Yeah,
as opposed to somebody who's writing for the artist or for somebody whom you're articulating for, along with, I'd say, in a more collaborative manner where they're also approving or disapproving of the way it's being written. So a very well edited piece,
Yeah.
which again comes
yeah,
back to the
exactly.
structure of the piece.
so it does end up become a finely constructed piece in itself,
Yeah.
regardless of who's writing it. Even if it's written by the artist, an artist is going to take into consideration all these things. Or do you think one is less? I don't know. I
No,
wouldn't.
it is constructed. It's very well. I mean, you have any artist statement, if you go look at it, you always know that it's been constructed because somebody's thought through how they're going to write it, or even if it's by a third person, it's been referred to with the artist for whom they're writing it, and then constructed and then approved by the artist, so then it becomes the artist statement.
So it comes, I think, in that sense, it goes towards. So one is your tongue, one is the way you sound, and one is the way you want to sound, like, right? So, and if you, I mean, I personally don't see any problem in third, fourth, fifth, sixth party writing for you if you choose to not write for whatever reason, you know, because that only becomes that is only considered a problem because of the expectation from the artist to be presenting themselves in this form on the public stage, which is what I was referring to as sincere. So, you know, if for example, if there were PR companies did this packaging for artists, and if that was very transparent, how wo PR company ka kaam hai, wo uska kaam hai, like we are used to doing in you know, our rest of our let's say social avenues, like in the media. Now, who would really be so? I mean, who would really want to believe that what Hrithik Roshan is saying in an interview has not been guided by that guy's PR strategist?
But you know, in this case, if we know that the we know that this is being done for PR by a PR strategist, there is that transparency. but at least you've heard about that this thing is happening. But I'm trying to think of a PR company that represents artists in a very standard format, this name, age, whatever, very specific questions, and advertising in that sense, and it doesn't make any statement. So the PR company constructs the artist statement.
And you know that that's constructed. I mean, as opposed to, say, if you're in a room where you've overheard a conversation that may be between two people whom you know are very close, and that will be more private as opposed to something you hear in public. And it's the level at which I think each of us communicate, whether it's in a very private situation, a public situation, or somebody with whom you have a different comfort level. The way we communicate is also different. Where I think even the whole, the language, the construction of it, all of that differs at the level of how comfortable you are with whom you're communicating with.
Yeah, exactly. And PR strategists construct either an intimate sounding voice they construct different kinds of voices. Now, I wouldn't really try and say that Kangana Ranaut's voice or any one of these voices which seem to be distinct in terms of their character is not constructed. Now, these are positions which are strategized and constructed, and it doesn't take away anything from what they are for me. It doesn't take away anything, because why should it? I mean, so if you go closer home as artists, as in musicians musicians who are like releasing on the big stage, take anyone like Nicki Minaj is such a brilliant construction. Now she's not. No one would ever think that she's who she pretends to be. But what does that take away from what you get?
This brings me to the other question I had for today, whether an acute consciousness about language or how we construct ourselves can actually lead to a construction of our self-awareness. Because what is happening is everything is becoming, in this case, like you were just saying, it becomes a construct of a persona without actually revealing what that person is not. You're only looking at what is being projected.
But isn't it the case with everything? It's all about the projection and not actually the person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's because the definitions and the constructions are so well defined. Is there any room for blurring that definition, where you don't have to show every form so clearly, where there is a little of the vulnerabilities or the
But what I'm trying to say is that even the vulnerability is also a projection, because you're actually choosing to have a specific kind of conversation as opposed to the other one. So then the point is, it's that vulnerability that there's a lot of personal details that a lot of artist statements have. But I also feel that it's a specific kind of projection to justify that there is some kind of intuitive relationship between the form and the content that is being produced, right? So that in some cases it's spectacularly true, but in some cases it's just spectacularly made up, where you are forced to see a signification through somebody's personal, like, intuitive articulations that you're reading, no? So
right.
In that way, it's a very strategic image that one is trying to make, and which is reiterated in so many forms, even when it like gone to different
What about the negative space?
Negative space of
what is being constructed? That is not conscious.
That's the unpredictable. Like if you like ask a newsreader to read a artist statement on the television, so that's the negative space, because half of it you will not know how is it going to be perceived. Sometimes it can be like taken so spectacularly well. Sometimes it might be what is this kind of expression. Like it's not about necessarily like it's badly written. I'm not talking about the quality of it, but the unpredictability of how certain situations will be produced around it. But somewhere it's also the curatorial comes in there, because the curatorial is going to actually make the relation for it to exist in a constellation, like with other works, with other artists, etc., etc.
Has anybody ever done that? Read artist statements or proposals like it's being presented in the news?
It's actually reminding me of things that go viral. I mean, why do some things go viral? It's something has been presented. I mean, not like a piece of work itself, but what is said about something, and it's like how a rumor spreads.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like the expression of something. It's not the thing itself.
Right.
I think to a large extent, we go by what is predictable.
Yeah.
It seems like that. I mean, to a larger extent, things are predictable.
Is that because
and are constructed within those predictable patterns?
For sure, yes.
And therefore, if some statement is not put within a sort of an understandable common framework, the person who's seeing that cannot predict or understand what it is about, and therefore it becomes sort of like an obscure thing which they are not able to understand, and that takes away from the artist's work, unfortunately. It's like if you are able to define yourself very clearly, then it is something that's predictable and for a person who's seeing it, and it makes it easier for the person to relate with it.
So people are only are comfortable with clarity.
Yes, comfortable. Yes, with clarity.
No, not comfortable with the clarity. I would say. I would say comfortable with the syntax that is familiar. And it's not necessarily about of course, clarity for sure, but it's about something. It's about more about familiarity.
Right.
And Dina saying the predictable is also the familiarity. Suddenly you see some fictional, like, suddenly some artist is displaying his artist statement as a newsreader is reading it. People will say, what the hell is this? No, like there's a possibility.
That's no precedence to it.
Right.
Yeah. And some people might say this is seriously cool because it actually punctures the very idea of the artist statements as truthful document, because it is making it news and like showing all this kind of fabrication kind of things involved in it and so on and so forth. So the meanings are multiple of how the gesture is perceived. But I agree with the predictable and the more than the predictable. I would say it's exactly the relation to it is the familiar. So as long as we are in the familiar terrain, you're like happy. It's like an influx announcement every day, which no one reads in the world. They just read the line in the subject box, because it's a familiar. Because you think there is no need to it. You have the feeling that you already know what it will be inside. No. So maybe there are exceptions to it, but this is some familiarity that I'm talking about.
I'm wondering as an artist as to how you can do away with the artist statement.
Familiarity is more comfortable because, otherwise one's knowledge can be questioned. And again, for the person who is on the understanding side, it's an uncomfortable feeling to not understand something fully, or one feeling inadequate in that situation. So that again comes down to familiarity and common syntax.
Exactly.
Why would you want to do away with the artist statement?
Sometimes when a person writes, it's not always that you need illustrations to support the writing. Similarly, when a person makes an artwork, it's not always that you need text to support the artwork. So,
but the text for an artwork would differ from an artist statement, wouldn't it?
When a person, I'm looking at the artist statement and the artwork as two separate forms.
Right.
So when something is said in one particular form, and then you have writing to support that particular form, it doesn't completely support it because they're two different languages.
Yeah.
But why does it have to play a supportive role? I mean,
Yeah, that's yeah.
it can be a parallel artwork. So I
It
mean,
could
and
be parallel artwork, but then the artist who makes the artwork should have a choice to do away with having another form alongside what they make or what they're trying to say.
yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, if they don't want to do, like, if they don't want the icing on the cake, why do they need to put it?
Exactly. So sometimes, even in the case of the problem is when an artist consciously chooses not to say anything and just have the artwork. Sometimes galleries and certain systems make catalogs, and there should be text. So my question is there a possibility to have catalogs without text?
No, but why are you
And
so anti? Why are you so anti-text?
I'm not anti. I'm just considering the possibility of
No,
This
the
another
absolute
thing.
No,
necessity to have the
I would
text.
want to. I would want to do away with the images.
yeah.
No. One sec. I have a question. Like for instance, when you pick up a book from a bookshop, all these books have a blurb at the back. So why should why do these texts, these artist statements become blurbs in text form for visuals? Why can't you have a visual blurb?
Yeah,
Exactly.
part of the reason is also the marketing, unfortunately, to use the word marketing, and I hate that. But there is a format that is expected of an artist to present themselves, and if they don't do that, then they are not even considered to be in the running. So, I
So
mean, if you
the only expectation from the artist should be their artwork.
ideally, yeah. I mean, but I
Ideally.
don't know if that's how it works.
15th
Because the
century.
art,
This is 21st century. That's 15th century. They
yeah,
were.
I mean, because Srinivasa,
I mean,
I
this
had
whole
a
thing of
dramatic
conflict.
statement to make.
No, I'm just saying that because it's I don't know, we had these conversations before, and I want to pinpoint of the fact that there is a field of relations, and that we are going back to the same thing of the familiarity here, because the understanding that somebody else will know the text language is more higher than the understanding that somebody will understand your visual language as well, because they're not trained to understand the visual language.
Yeah,
That actually
that's the point.
surprises
I mean,
me because
I mean, the dramatic statement I was making was that because art doesn't work, we
Ah,
need text to say it, because other, I mean, no one is going to, let's say, if I can't access the work, मेरे को समझ नहीं आया, so at least I should have a one-liner to roll through my head.
exactly.
No, I disagree there. Absolutely. I write text for shows, but I think it's actually not necessary. Works have to speak on their own. And the
they
number
do.
of people who run away from reading text, they're not reading the text. Maybe they like titles because titles are easy. But really nobody likes to read text.
People also run away from, that's where I'm actually bringing the newsreader idea, is that people also may be running away the text because the writing of the text and the positioning of the text in a curatorial format is not radically reinvented over the past 10 years of exhibition making or 15 years.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if there is a possibility for you to reinvent the relationship between the image and the text, and not necessarily looking at an A4 sheet on a sunboard on a curatorial on an exhibition, then actually talking about a different set of
Yeah,
relational.
and the language, right, and the texture of the language. I mean, people are really, I think, at this point, they've lost their patience with trying to read dense academic text they they don't know how to make sense of, because they haven't read all these books, and they don't want to be made guilty for not having read all these books.
Yeah.
So
It's not they, it's we. I mean, it's me. I can say very honestly that I myself turn away from very large words and complex
correct.
sentences.
So yeah, so
I mean, also when you
if I,
understand, sorry, go ahead.
no, I mean,
No, it's also when you're looking at something new in terms of a visual, say an art piece, you're trying to understand that. And if you have to take out time to understand the text that's going along with it, you want things to simplify it and not to complicate it more also.
For sure, yes. That's what I'm saying. So then maybe also, of course, the language and also the ways in which this language is simplified and also communicated. Maybe a little more innovative ways of thinking about this would be nice. Then the whole kind of disjuncture that you're producing between the text and the image can be like,
That's too fundamental thing, because it's like yeah, because eventually images are text, right? I mean, so you can't take out one from the other because it's all text.
yeah, and text is an image and images, it's the same
Yeah.
kind of.
Okay, we are. I think we need to wind up. This has been fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for coming for all the 3 days. And let's hope to continue in other forms, and we'll keep you all posted about that.
Great. Yeah.
So
Thanks.
we'll
Thank
continue.
you.
All right. Yeah. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, Malvika. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.